Admiral James Walker stood motionless before the massive display screen, his weathered face reflecting the blue glow of countless enemy ships surrounding Earth. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared him for this moment. The Galactic Council, Earth's supposed allies, had turned against them. "They're closing the net, sir," reported Lieutenant Davis from his station. "Council ships have taken position at all major orbital paths." Walker's fingers tightened around the railing of his command platform. Just 3 days ago, they had been discussing trade agreements with these same aliens. Now, without warning or formal declaration, the Council had launched what they called a protective quarantine of Earth. The emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council was already in progress when Walker arrived at the underground facility beneath Geneva. The room buzzed with tension as military and civilian leaders argued about their response. "They've already destroyed 3 of our colony ships." General Roberts slammed his fist on the table. "Peaceful vessels carrying families to our outer settlements. They didn't even warn them." Director Emma Stone of Earth Intelligence stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of concern. "Our attempts at communication have been blocked at every turn. The Council representatives aren't just ignoring us. They're actively preventing our messages from reaching other species." The room fell silent as the main screen activated, showing a leaked transmission from within the Galactic Council chambers. The aliens sat in their elevated seats, looking down at the empty spot where Earth's representative should have been. "The humans have proven too unpredictable," announced Council Speaker Gray, his translator making his chittering sounds into smooth English. "Their rapid technological advancement poses a threat to galactic stability. We must contain them before they spread further." Walker watched as species after species voted in favor of Earth's quarantine. Even those they had considered friends refused to speak in their defense. "We've intercepted something else," Director Stone said quietly, typing commands into her tablet. Another recording played, this one from a private meeting of Council leadership. "The humans will learn their place," Speaker Gray continued in what he thought was a secure chamber. "We'll control their resource supply, limit their expansion. A few decades of isolation will show them how dependent they are on Council approval." The recording ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. "They're not just quarantining us," Walker spoke for the first time since entering. "They're planning to slowly strangle us into submission." President Adams stood at the head of the table, her face grave. "Options. Direct military response would be suicide," Walker replied, bringing up tactical displays. "They outnumber us 50 to 1 in ships alone. Their technology is still ahead of ours in most areas." "We can't just do nothing," General Roberts protested. "No," Walker agreed, his eyes hardening. "But we need to be smart about this. The Council thinks we're primitive and predictable. That's their first mistake." Director Stone nodded slowly. "They expect us to either submit quietly or rage uselessly against their blockade. We need a third option." President Adams looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. "We've always known this might happen. Operation Ghost Protocol was designed for exactly this scenario." Walker felt a chill run down his spine. Ghost Protocol was their most closely guarded contingency plan, developed in secret since humanity's first contact with alien life. "It will take time," Stone warned. "Months, maybe years to implement fully." "Then we'd better start now," Adams replied. "Admiral Walker, you'll coordinate with Commander Reed on the military aspects. Director Stone, I need your people gathering every piece of intelligence we can get. General Roberts, begin dispersing our remaining forces according to the protocol." Walker looked back at the tactical display, watching the Council ships tightening their blockade around Earth. They thought they were caging a primitive species. Instead, they were backing a clever predator into a corner. "Let them think they've won," President Adams said quietly. "Let them think we're contained and controlled. And when the time comes—" She left the sentence unfinished. Walker allowed himself a grim smile. The Council had just made the biggest mistake in their history. They had given humanity something far more dangerous than ships or weapons. They had given them a reason for revenge. 3 months into the quarantine, Director Emma Stone sat in her dimly lit office, staring at data streams flowing across multiple screens. Something wasn't adding up in the Council's activities. The patterns were too perfect, too clean. "Ma'am," her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "The data team found something in the colonial accident records." Stone's eyes narrowed. The recent string of accidents at human colonies had been bothering her for weeks. Too many ships lost, too many convenient malfunctions. The evidence filled her screens. Communication logs, flight patterns, energy readings. What looked like random tragedies now formed a clear picture. Each accident had been carefully planned. "Get me Admiral Walker," she ordered, already downloading the data to a secure drive. Now, in the war room beneath Geneva, Walker studied the evidence with growing anger. "They've been playing us for years," he said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Even before the quarantine." Stone nodded. "The Council didn't just decide to contain us. They'd been sabotaging our expansion for at least 5 years. Those colony ships that were lost. Council ships were nearby every single time, hiding behind sensor blocks." "And that's not all," a new voice added. Commander Tom Reed walked in, carrying his own set of data tablets. "Remember those failed mining operations in the outer belt? Our new analysis shows energy signatures matching Council mining ships in the area just days before each site was declared depleted." Walker's fist clenched. "They've been stealing our resources. And our technology," Stone added, bringing up more files. "Remember the primitive fabrications they accused us of presenting? Look at this." The screen showed Council ships using technology that looked suspiciously like Earth designs that had been rejected as too primitive when humanity tried to patent them. "They're stealing our innovations," Reed said, then claiming we copied them when we tried to use our own inventions. President Adams joined them, her face showing the strain of months of crisis management. "How bad is it?" "Worse than we thought," Stone replied. "The Council isn't just containing us. They're actively working to keep humanity dependent and weak, while stealing everything of value we create." "The public needs to know," Walker said. Adams shook her head. "Not yet. If we reveal this now, people will demand immediate action. We're not ready for that fight." "The Ghost Protocol preparations?" Stone asked. "Proceeding ahead of schedule," Reed answered. "The Council's arrogance works in our favor. They're so convinced of our inferiority, they don't look too closely at our primitive activities." A junior officer rushed in, holding a fresh report. "Madam President, we just lost contact with the Europa colony. Council ships are conducting another safety inspection." The room fell silent. Europa was their largest off-world settlement, home to over 10,000 people. "No more," Adams said quietly, then with growing strength. "No more playing along. No more pretending we don't see what they're doing." She looked at each person in the room. "Initialize Ghost Protocol. All phases. It will mean war," Walker warned. "They already declared war," Stone replied. "They just thought we were too stupid to notice." Reed smiled grimly. "How long should we maintain the facade of compliance?" "Give me 3 more months," Stone said. "I need time to position our intelligence assets. When we strike, we need to hit them everywhere at once." "They think they're dealing with primitive, predictable humans," Adams said. "Let's show them how wrong they are." She turned to Walker. "Admiral, you have command of all military assets. Commander Reed, accelerate the stealth fleet production. Director Stone, I want every piece of dirt you can find on Council leadership." The room hummed with new energy. After months of forced passivity, they finally had a clear purpose. Walker looked at the others, seeing the same determination in their eyes. The Council thought they were safely containing a weak species. Instead, they were about to learn why humanity had survived countless disasters and challenges on their harsh homeworld. They were about to learn that backing humans into a corner was the last mistake anyone should make. Commander Tom Reed watched through reinforced glass as robots assembled another stealth ship in the massive underground facility. The cave system beneath the Rocky Mountains had become humanity's greatest secret shipyard. Council sensors couldn't penetrate the thick rock, and their satellites saw only abandoned mining operations on the surface. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Reed said to Admiral Walker, who stood beside him watching the construction. The ship's dark hull absorbed light, making it look like a shadow taking shape in the cavern. "How many can we build in a month?" Walker asked, his eyes tracking the robotic arms as they moved with precise coordination. 10, Reed replied. "We've reverse-engineered their stealth technology and improved it. These ships don't just hide from sensors. They're practically invisible to the naked eye." In another part of the facility, technicians worked on captured Council technology. What the aliens had dismissed as primitive attempts at replication were actually carefully planned opportunities to steal their tech. Director Stone's latest intelligence package arrived, Walker said, handing Reed a secure tablet. "The Council's getting sloppy. They really believe we're helpless." Reed scrolled through the data, Council ship patterns, command protocols, communication frequencies, everything they needed to strike at the heart of their enemy's operations. "Speaking of Stone," Walker continued, "her people found something interesting in the Europa colony inspection records." Reed looked up. The forced inspection of their largest colony still angered him. "The Council ships use their own scanning technology on our facilities," Walker explained with a slight smile. "Our systems recorded everything. We now have detailed scans of their military ships' internal layouts." Reed's eyes widened. "They handed us the blueprints to their own ships." "Complete with power distribution networks and weapon systems," Walker confirmed. "Sometimes arrogance has a steep price." They walked through the facility, passing training rooms where soldiers practiced in zero-gravity chambers. Earth's military was undergoing a complete transformation. Traditional armies were being rebuilt into space warfare units. Every soldier learned to fight in multiple environments, using both human and alien technology. "The Council's latest report calls us a properly subdued primitive species," Reed said, checking another message on his tablet. "They think we've accepted our place." Walker stopped at a viewport overlooking another construction bay. Below, crews were installing new weapons on a captured Council ship. The alien vessel had been lost in an accident near Mars, another gift from the Council's overconfidence. "How's the drone program progressing?" Walker asked. Reed led him to a secure testing chamber. Inside, thousands of small objects floated in formation. Each one was no bigger than a coffee cup, but together they moved like a school of fish, responding instantly to commands. "We based them on Earth's insect swarms," Reed explained. "Each drone is relatively simple, but they work together as a single unit. Council ships won't know what hit them." "And the special project?" Reed entered a code into a wall panel, revealing a hidden elevator. They descended deeper into the mountain, emerging in a massive circular chamber. In the center floated a sphere of pure darkness, surrounded by complex equipment. "We reversed their gravity manipulation technology," Reed said proudly. "But instead of using it for ship propulsion, we created something new. When activated, it creates a localized space-time distortion. Their shields won't help because technically, nothing is hitting them. Space itself becomes the weapon." Walker stared at the sphere. "They thought keeping us isolated would keep us weak. Instead, they gave us time," Reed agreed. "Time to study their technology. Time to improve it. Time to prepare." A technician approached with another report. More Council ships were gathering near Jupiter, preparing for what they called a routine patrol. "Let them come," Reed said quietly. "Every ship they send is another chance to study their technology. Every arrogant display of power tells us more about their weaknesses." Walker nodded, watching as another stealth ship neared completion in the main bay. "How much longer until we're ready?" Reed checked his calculations. 4 more weeks. We'll have enough ships and trained crews for the first phase of Ghost Protocol." "Good," Walker replied. Because I'm tired of watching them steal from us, threaten us, and treat us like children. Above them, Council ships continued their patrols, never suspecting that deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity was preparing to teach them a lesson about underestimating their prey. The command center was silent except for the soft hum of computers. Admiral Walker stood at the central platform, watching as hundreds of small dots moved into position on the tactical display. Each dot represented a stealth ship, invisible to Council sensors, waiting for his command. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Davis announced quietly. Ghost Protocol Phase 1 is go. Walker took a deep breath. Once he gave the order, there would be no turning back. He looked at the countdown timer. 30 seconds. Send the signal, he ordered. Across Council space, human stealth ships emerged from hiding. They had been positioning themselves for weeks, using the blind spots in Council sensor networks that Director Stone's team had discovered. The first target was the Council's primary communication hub near their capital world. Commander Reed's flagship led the attack, appearing seemingly out of nowhere above the massive station. Council facility is hailing us, Reed's communication officer reported. No response. Reed ordered. Launch the swarm. Thousands of tiny drones poured from the stealth ships, surrounding the communication hub. The Council's defense systems activated, trying to target the small machines, but there were too many. Like a cloud of metallic insects, they attached themselves to key points on the station's surface. Swarm in position. Reed reported back to Earth. Beginning shutdown sequence. The drones didn't attack. They simply interfaced with the station's systems and began turning everything off. Within minutes, the Council's main communication network went dark. Similar scenes played out across Council space. Stealth ships appeared near military bases, shipyards, and command centers. Instead of destroying them, the human forces systematically disabled their targets. In the Council's central chamber, Speaker Gray stared in disbelief as reports flooded in. How is this possible? He demanded. They're primitives. They're contained. His aide rushed in with more bad news. Sir, we've lost contact with the defense fleet. Something is shutting down our ship's power systems. Walker watched from Earth as green lights flashed across his display, indicating successful operations. Phase 1 status, he asked. 80% of Council military communications are offline, Davis reported. Their ships are blind and deaf. They can't coordinate a response. Stone's voice came through on a secure channel. Admiral, you need to see this. She transmitted video feeds from across Council space. Council ships were firing randomly, trying to hit enemies they couldn't see. Some ships accidentally fired on their allies in the confusion. Begin Phase 2, Walker commanded. The human stealth fleet shifted targets. Now they focused on the Council's sensor networks, destroying their ability to detect and track ships. Without communications or sensors, the mighty Council fleet was reduced to individual ships flying blind. Sir, Davis called out, Council forces are retreating from Earth orbit. They're trying to regroup at their main bases. Let them run, Walker said. They'll find no sanctuary there. At the Council's largest military base, Commander Reed watched as their proud defense fleet scattered in panic. His drones had already disabled their command center. And now the Council ships were fleeing from an enemy they couldn't see or fight. This is Commander Reed to all ships. He broadcast on an open channel, letting the Council forces hear him. The quarantine of Earth is now over. Humanity has chosen to renegotiate our relationship with the Council. In the Council chamber, Speaker Gray received the transmission with growing horror. The humans weren't just breaking free. They were systematically dismantling the Council's military power. Send the emergency signal, he ordered. Summon all available ships. His aide looked at him with fear. Sir, we can't. All our long-range communications are down. Each system is isolated. We can't even warn them what's coming. Walker allowed himself a small smile as more success reports came in. The Council had spent years treating humans like primitive children. Now they were learning that their primitive quarantine victims had turned their own arrogance into a weapon. "Begin broadcasting our message to all Council worlds," he ordered. Across Council space, their citizens watched in shock as their mighty military crumbled before an enemy they never saw coming. The humans they had dismissed as primitives had just outthought, outmaneuvered, and outsmarted the greatest power in the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. Director Emma Stone faced the huge screen in Earth's diplomatic chamber, where representatives from 3 major council species waited nervously. Unlike previous meetings, the alien delegates weren't looking down at her from high seats. Instead, they sat at the same level, their usual arrogance replaced by uncertainty. "We have proof," Stone said calmly, "that Speaker Gray has been lying to all of you." She transmitted a series of files. These records show how Council leadership has been stealing resources not just from Earth, but from your worlds too. The alien delegates studied the data, their expressions showing growing anger. The tallest delegate, from a species called the Mech, spoke first. "These mining records, they match our missing resource reports." "Exactly," Stone replied. "The same ships that robbed our colonies were stealing from yours. But Speaker Gray blamed your losses on pirate raids and natural depletion." In another meeting room, Admiral Walker was showing military evidence to different council members. "Your ships didn't just help quarantine Earth," he explained. "They were being used to secretly monitor your own territories. The council leadership was spying on all of you." The news spread quickly through council space. Species that had supported Earth's quarantine now discovered they had been victims too. Council unity began to crack. Commander Reed's stealth ships made sure the truth reached every world. They broadcasted evidence of corruption directly to Council citizens, bypassing official channels. People learned how their leaders had been lying to them for years. "Speaker Gray is demanding an emergency session," Lieutenant Davis reported to Walker. "He's trying to rally support against us." Walker smiled. "Good. Let him gather them all in one place." The council chamber was fuller than ever as Gray took his position. But before he could speak, every screen in the room activated. Director Stone's face appeared, along with a mountain of evidence. "Honorable delegates," she began, "your speaker has been stealing from all of us. These records prove that council leadership has been growing rich by robbing both Earth and your worlds." Gray tried to shut off the transmission, but Earth's tech controlled the systems now. He could only watch as years of secret deals and hidden crimes were exposed. "The humans aren't the primitive species you were told we are," Stone continued. "We were targeted because we discovered the truth. Our quarantine wasn't about safety. It was about hiding council corruption." One by one, delegate groups stood and left the chamber. Species that had been rivals for centuries now united in their anger at being deceived. In Earth's command center, Walker watched the council fall apart. "Director Stone's plan worked perfectly," he said to Reed. "They're turning against each other." "Not just that," Reed replied. 3 major species have already requested Earth's protection from council retaliation. They're asking us to help secure their borders. President Adams joined them, looking at the tactical display where former council forces were now fighting each other. "How many species have withdrawn from the council so far?" 12, Stone answered, entering the room. "And more are leaving every hour. They're all demanding investigations into how much was stolen from them." The remains of the council fleet tried to maintain order, but they were scattered and disorganized. Without their communication networks, and with their sensors still blinded, they could do little to stop the collapse. "Speaker Gray is trying to escape," Davis reported. "His personal ship just left the capital." "Let him run," Walker said. "Our stealth ships are tracking him. He'll lead us to whatever he's trying to hide." Stone nodded. "We've already found 5 secret bases where he stored stolen resources. The more we discover, the more species turn against the council." "And Earth?" Adams asked. "How are we viewed now?" "They're calling us liberators," Stone replied with a slight smile. the primitive species that exposed the Council's corruption and freed them from centuries of subtle control. Walker looked at the tactical display, where more and more Council ships were powering down their weapons and requesting peace talks with Earth. The mighty Galactic Council wasn't being destroyed by human weapons, it was being torn apart by its own lies. "Shall we show them what else their primitive friends have discovered?" Reed asked. Adams nodded. "Begin Phase 3. Let's make sure the Council never threatens Earth, or anyone else, again." Speaker Gray's personal ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a hidden space station. He had escaped the chaos at the Council chambers, but his relief was short-lived. As his ship approached the station, 3 human stealth vessels appeared out of nowhere, surrounding him. "Nowhere left to run," Commander Reed's voice came through on all channels. "Your secret hiding place isn't so secret anymore." Inside the command center on Earth, Admiral Walker watched the operation with satisfaction. "What did we find in the station?" he asked. "Everything," Director Stone replied, reviewing the data streaming in. Private accounts filled with stolen wealth, records of illegal genetic experiments, evidence of assassination orders against leaders who questioned Council decisions. The station contained proof of crimes going back centuries. The Council hadn't just been corrupt during Earth's time. They had been systematically abusing their power since their formation. Lieutenant Davis rushed in with urgent news. "Sir, major fighting has broken out in Council space. The mech and 3 other species are attacking Council military bases. They're demanding the return of their stolen resources." Walker brought up the tactical display. Across Council territory, former allies were now attacking each other. Some fought for revenge. Others tried to grab power in the chaos. The mighty Galactic Council was tearing itself apart. "Director Stone," President Adams called from her private channel. "Tell me about the genetic experiments." Stone's face was grim as she shared the files. They were using stolen human DNA to try creating super soldiers. They wanted to combine human adaptability with their advanced technology. All those medical inspections they forced on our colonies were cover for collecting genetic samples. "And it gets worse," Reed added, joining the conversation from his ship. "We found records showing they did the same to other species. Everyone they claimed to be protecting was actually being experimented on." The news spread like wildfire through Council space. Species that had been fighting each other now united in their fury at the Council leadership. Gray's hidden station had contained details of crimes against every member species. "Speaker Gray is requesting to speak to Earth's leadership," Davis reported. "Put him on," Adams ordered. Gray's image appeared on the main screen. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by desperate fear. "Please," he begged, "you don't understand. Everything we did was for galactic stability. We had to control the aggressive species, had to guide technological development." "You mean steal it?" Walker interrupted. "Every innovation you claimed humans copied from you was actually stolen from us or others. The Council can still survive," Gray insisted. "We can negotiate." "No," Adams said firmly. "The Council as it existed is finished. Your own crimes destroyed it." More reports flooded in. Council military bases were surrendering to their former member species. The Council's remaining loyal ships were being captured or destroyed. Centuries of power and control were crumbling in a matter of days. "Speaker Gray's personal files are decrypted," Stone announced. "Admiral, you need to see this." They had plans to eventually sterilize human colonies. They were going to slowly eliminate our species while pretending to protect us. Walker's face hardened. "Send that evidence to everyone. Let the galaxies see what their great council really planned." The last major council fleet tried to make a stand near their capital world. They were quickly surrounded by ships from a dozen angry species, all demanding justice. Human stealth ships watched silently, no longer needing to fight. "President Adams," Reed called from his position near Gray's station. "We found their weapon research facility. They were developing planet-killing weapons while preaching peace to everyone else." Adams nodded grimly. Share it all. Every secret, every crime, every lie. The Council thrived on keeping species divided and suspicious of each other. Let's show them what happens when their victims unite. In the following hours, the last Council strongholds fell. Gray and other Council leaders were arrested by their own former guards. The great chamber where they had once proudly proclaimed Earth's quarantine was now dark and empty. It's done, Walker said quietly, watching the final Council ships power down their weapons. They thought they could cage humanity. Instead, we showed the galaxy how to break free from their true prison. 1 year after the Council's fall, Admiral Walker stood in the newly rebuilt Galactic Assembly Hall. Unlike the old Council chamber with its towering seats and hierarchical design, this room was circular. All species sat at the same level, representing the new equality among galactic civilizations. The last detention center has been closed. Director Stone reported to the gathered representatives. All species who were subjected to Council experiments have been freed and are receiving medical care. The room was quiet as images showed the former prison worlds being transformed into hospitals and rehabilitation centers. The Council's victims were finally getting help instead of torture. What about the stolen resources? Asked the mech delegate, now a close ally of Earth. Commander Reed stepped forward with his report. We've traced 90% of the Council's hidden wealth. Recovery teams are returning resources to their rightful owners. The remaining 10% will be used to help species who suffered the most under Council rule. President Adams, now serving as Earth's representative to the new Galactic Assembly, shared the next piece of news. The trial of Speaker Gray and other Council leaders begins next week. They will answer for centuries of crimes. In orbit above the capital world, human stealth ships patrolled alongside vessels from other species. But these weren't warships anymore. They had been converted into exploration vessels, working together to map the galaxy properly for the first time. The technology sharing program is showing excellent results. Reed continued. When species work together instead of stealing from each other, progress happens much faster. We've already made breakthroughs in medicine and space travel that the Council tried to prevent. Lieutenant Davis, now promoted to captain, brought up a new star map. Hundreds of green dots showed newly established colonies, not just human ones, but settlements from all species who had been restricted by Council rules. Free expansion into uninhabited systems has reduced territory disputes by 80%, she reported. When everyone has room to grow, there's less reason to fight. Walker watched with pride as former enemies worked together, sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it. The Council's greatest fear, that different species might cooperate, had become reality. There's one more item, Stone announced. Our investigation teams found evidence that other advanced civilizations exist beyond Council space. The Council was hiding their existence, afraid that contact with them might break their control over us. The assembly hall buzzed with excitement. New species to meet, new cultures to learn from, opportunities the Council had denied them all. We should send a joint mission, the mech delegate suggested. Show them that the age of Council isolation is over. President Adams smiled. Earth would be honored to provide stealth ships for the expedition. Not for war or spying this time, but for peaceful first contact. In a quiet moment after the meeting, Walker stood with Stone and Reed, looking out at the bustling spaceport below. Ships of all species moved freely, trading and exploring together. Hard to believe it was just a year ago that they had us under quarantine, Reed said. Stone nodded. They thought they were containing a primitive, dangerous species. Instead, they united the galaxy against them. And now? Walker asked, watching as a group of young officers, human and alien together, practiced operating a new hybrid ship design. Now we're doing what humanity does best, Adams said, joining them. Adapting, learning, growing. But this time, we're helping others do the same. The former Council prison worlds were becoming centers of learning. Species that had been kept apart were sharing their cultures and knowledge. The galaxy was healing from centuries of Council control. "There's a message from the exploration fleet," Davis called out. "They've made contact with one of those civilizations beyond Council space. They're requesting a diplomatic mission." Walker looked at his old friends, the people who had helped humanity break free and forge a better future. "Well," he said with a smile, "should we go introduce ourselves to the neighbors?" High above, Earth's ships prepared for another mission. But they weren't sneaking through enemy territory this time. They were leading the way to a new age of cooperation, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its capacity for revenge, but its ability to turn enemies into allies and build something better from the ashes of the old.